welcome to another episode of the MDM Podcast. I'm Mike Hockett, our executive editor. Fairfield, Ohio-based distributor AFC Industries has frequently been in MDM's news headlines over the past several years, in which time the company has made nearly a dozen acquisitions and seen its revenue jump from $390 million in 2021 to $520 million in 2022. The company made its initial appearance on MDM's top industrial distributors list this past year, ranking number 34 in 2023 for industrial distributors and number 8 for fastener distributors. AFC's website describes the company as a full-service industrial distributor offering vendor-managed inventory services, kitting, light assembly, private labeling, and other supply chain solutions to OEM manufacturers, utilities, distributors, and users of C-class components. My guest for this episode is AFC Industries CEO Kevin Godin, who has led the company since 2015. We discussed AFC's rapid expansion and how the company has managed it all, both from an operations standpoint and on the culture side. We also touched on what AFC and its private equity owner, Bertram Capital, look for in potential targets and what further expansion may be on the horizon. Enjoy. Kevin, thanks for joining the MDM podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
To start off, can you recap your career path a little bit of how you got to where you are today as CEO of AFC Industries since 2015?
Sure. I began my career in manufacturing, and that's where I expected to stay. I loved it. I started actually in the quality area, started in production, moved into quality, moved into supply chain and then operations, and fully expected, to stay in manufacturing, really enjoyed it. And I had a colleague that left to take a position at a distributor and had some project work that he was working on, which was similar to some things we had done in a manufacturer, and reached out to me, and I took the position and have been in distribution since then. And then immediately prior to coming to AFC, I was the president of General Fasteners Company in Livonia, another fastener distribution business, similar in some ways to AFC, and was there for several years, and then was recruited by one of the previous investors, Incline Equity Partners, reached out and sounded like what I would like to do with the business, aligned with what they were trying to do with AFC, and so the rest is history.
All right. Well, while AFC Industries has certainly been in our headlines recently these past 2 years with all of its acquisitions, I'm guessing that there's still a decent portion of our audience that isn't real familiar yet with AFC as far as who it is and its history. So can you describe AFC Industries in a nutshell and its role or its value to the markets that it serves?
Absolutely. We're really a full line distributor, and our whole focus is to make manufacturing and assembly environments more efficient, more effective at what they do. So we manage a wide range of products, mostly those products that are small components. They may be C or D items in their bill of material that's high SKU count, but any one of those can cause an issue for them. And so we will manage the logistics of that, the quality of that, VMI, on time delivery management, all of those kinds of things, so they don't have to worry about that, so they can focus on, their operation and just understand that all those components will be there, they'll be checked, they'll be right. So we're really more of a pull distributor than a push distributor. We're an extension of the supply chain team and the quality team at our customers.
All right. Well, on the history side, all I know about the company so far is that it was formerly owned by Incline Equity Partners from 2015 until April of 2021, during which time it made about a dozen acquisitions before the company was then acquired by its current owner, Bertram Capital, and it has since made another 11 deals since that time. And I know you joined AFC shortly after Incline partnered with the company in 2015, but can you share a little bit how the company originally formed, how it got off the ground?
Sure. Well, originally the AFC comes from originally Advanced Fastener Corp in Cincinnati, which was a regional fastener distributor in Cincinnati, which was started by a salesperson that had spun off from another distributor years ago, and that was the early 80s. and built that business. Then an investment firm, Rockwood Equity, purchased Advanced Fasteners, and then they acquired Dell Fastener in Pittsburgh, which was a similar business, a regional distributor. They put those two together as a platform, and Incline invested in that, and that's when I became involved with the business shortly afterwards.
As we noted, AFC has already been very busy with acquisitions under Incline, but that activity has seemed to only accelerated since partnering with Bertram Capital. And whenever I see a distributor growing at anywhere near the pace that AFC has, it makes me wonder what it's been like to manage all of that growth in such a short amount of time. So I'll pose that question to you with just how has AFC successfully managed all this rapid recent expansion?
Well, it's a lot of work to do that, and really, it's a testimony to the leadership people we have at the divisional level and the teams that we have in those businesses. And so, we try to do a really good job of communicating to folks what to expect, and we believe sort of in persistently moving forward, but not necessarily disrupting things that don't need to be disrupted. And so, we don't come in and try to change everything. And, we partner with good businesses to help take them to the next level and then integrate them over time in various ways. And so it really, the key to that is having the right leadership in place and making sure that those leaders are communicating and on the same page across all the different disciplines. Again, it's not easy, but we've not had any major disruptions in any of the deals, and I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of is just the way the team's performed and the way we've treated people through each of these.
And I was browsing through AFC's leadership team, and it was apparent that you're really surrounded there by a team with a ton of experience in the fasteners industry, as well as in finance, operations, and more. So I know you just touched on this, but how important has it been to have a great team around you to help achieve and manage all this growth?
Oh, well, that's critical. That it can't be done without that, really, at least not in a sustainable way. In this business, there are no secret recipes or secret patented processes that you're going to develop that are going to be disruptive, right? I mean, it's a distribution business, and so everything is built around the professionalism, the knowledge, the responsiveness of the team, and so folks have to be able to trust one another and have respect with one another, and know that the guy or girl next to you is doing her job, so you can focus on what you're supposed to do. And I think that's what it really all boils down to. I don't think there's any way we could go at the pace we are if we didn't have very high levels of confidence in our team.
For distributors that are very active in M&A, I'm always curious to learn about the criteria that they have for potential targets and the qualities that they look for in their prospecting. So a couple of the companies that AFC has acquired, Klein Tool in Iowa, Motor City Industrial outside of Detroit, are ones that I actually was able to visit and do distributor profile features on years ago before they were acquired. So I know that those two in particular were high quality additions. And I'm sure it is a partnership strategy with the AFC leadership team and Bertram Capital on this, but can you touch on what AFC typically looks for in an acquisition target, whether that's in the capability side or in the people and culture side?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we're going to look at is what is their vision for going to market? How do they think about the business? How do they think about the value they provide? And so we're only looking to really work with people who are focused on service. There's a lot of ways to approach the market. You can try to be the low cost guy. You can try to be geographically everywhere. But what we're looking for are businesses where there's something unique about their service profile, and the culture is built around a dedication to that service profile. So that's the first thing. Then you look at the team. I mean, the team is critical, because if you don't have that cultural alignment and you don't have a team of people that you can work with and that you feel like you can move forward with, none of the rest of the things are going to really be relevant, because it's not going to work. And then beyond that, we look at the things you'd expect. So Does it add capability? Does it add an end market that we'd like to be in? Does it add, capacity or geography that would be helpful to our strategy? There's been a specific reason for every deal that we've done. They've all checked that service culture box. They've all checked the team box, and all of them have addressed one or more additional strategic needs that we felt would strengthen the business.
Then looking at some of the recent deals AFC has announced these past few months, they include Iowa-based White Distribution and Supply, which has additional locations in 5 other states, New Jersey-based Fastbolt, which likewise has additional locations in 3 other states and in Quebec, Canada, and rubber sealing distributor EAP International, which is based in Manchester, UK. And what I find particularly interesting is that AFC's core product offering is fasteners, but it's certainly not the only category it has expanded to on the acquisition side. So can you touch on the company's capabilities outside of its, bread and butter fasteners product, and if its diversification is something that it's still looking to pursue?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the heartbeat of the business is fasteners. That's the core of what the expertise of the team was built around. But we don't think of ourselves as selling parts. We think of the business as a service business. And so even prior to any of these acquisitions, very early on, we had diversification in custom engineered components and castings and small assemblies and tight tolerance machine parts that we would do. And so as we began to grow and the customers began coming to us asking for us to manage additional sort of adjacencies to our business, we started to think about that a little bit differently, and we've expanded into several. I mean, we have specializations in metal framing. We do some manufacturing. In certain segments, and so it's a pretty broad offering at this point, and it serves us well. But all of those things are connected ultimately to solving a problem in a manufacturing or an assembly plant or a higher volume, maintenance type of environment where they're regularly turning over product. And so everything we do is really designed or built around trying to solve a problem for a customer. And so if we start to get enough customers coming to us saying, hey, we can't find a partner in this space that does what you do, then we'll begin looking at that. And so we don't want to go too broad into things that we don't understand, but if it's a close adjacency and it helps us to solve problems for our customers, then we absolutely will consider that.
AFC has certainly shown that it wants to grow its international presence, and one of those recent bigger deals was the acquisition of TFC Europe in mid-2022, and that deal added about 100 employees and, from what I saw, about 3,000 customers with a network of UK and European locations. And then the aforementioned EAP International deal was added to that unit upon its acquisition this past spring. Is there anything you can share about what AFC is looking to do more on the international front?
Yeah, absolutely. The U.S. market is the core market for us and will continue to be for several reasons. But and this connects with the prior question. One of the parts of our strategy is to make sure we have diversification of revenue stream, diversification of cycling in terms of those revenue streams. And so you pair that with the fact that we're serving a lot of manufacturers that also have facilities overseas, and it makes sense for us to look at certain markets and to be present there to be able to solve problems for those customers or to add a revenue stream that might be on a different cycle. And so we've looked at that, and we continue to look at that. And so where there are things that make sense internationally, we'll continue to pursue those. But at this point, their thinking is that they augment what we're doing in the core market.
And certainly this rapid expansion over the past 2 years has been made possible by Bertram Capital. And I want to give you the chance to say some nice things about them. So what has it been like to have Bertram as a partner and empower the vast majority of this recent growth that you guys have seen over the past at least few years here?
Oh, Bertram's been a phenomenal partner, and we've been fortunate to work with good partners throughout, but there are some things that Bertram brings to the table that are, I think, a little bit unique to them in terms of these mid-market funds. And the guys there, the team that they have, they're very good investors. They're very smart business people. And so they're great partners to bounce things off of. Obviously, they do a great job in terms of managing the capital, and they have this labs piece that helps with a lot of the technological development that helps us to accelerate that. So just at several levels, they've been a key partner to what we've been able to do at AFC in terms of accelerating the deal flow and even operationally things that people don't see.
Switching gears, we know that distributors of all kinds are going through a digital transformation. A lot of them are at, very different parts of that journey, and they're trying to they're catering to maximize their efficiencies to do more with less, and catering to the ways that today's B2B customers want to buy. Can you touch on any recent technology initiatives out of AFC, whether it's customer-facing, internal operations, or any of the above? Just anything on the technology side at AFC recently?
Any business person would tell you, you have to continue to stay up on the technology and take advantage of the efficiencies that it affords you. This is one of the areas where the Bertram partnership has really been helpful. Specifically, I think we're living through a time of pretty significant development of certain types of tools when you talk about AI and some other things. And so we've been developing some of those kinds of tools, some of which are deployed and some of which we are still experimenting with to see, how broadly they can be applied. But our thinking is that it's still fundamentally a people business. And so where we can deploy technology to take some of the repetitive grunt work kind of things away to free up our people to focus on higher value added work, more relationship building, and so forth. That's what we're trying to do, and that's where we've been focusing.
And then on the people side of things, AFC's culture is based around its simple management approach, which is an acronym that spells out its cultural values. And distributors have put a much bigger emphasis on culture coming out of COVID as a primary selling point for the company on the recruiting and retaining talent side. And I don't want to make you give a full recap of it, but can you outline, some of the core elements of AFC's workplace simple culture and how much of a challenge it is to implement a consistent culture company-wide when there is so much, expansion and acquisition growth going on?
Absolutely. That culture is key to everything, as we talked about earlier. And there are two components for us, simple and plus one. And so simple, it's, as you mentioned, it's an acronym. So we're looking to streamline the customer experience. We want to be easy to do business with. We're looking to continuously improve. We don't want to do things the same way tomorrow just because we did them that way yesterday. The M is measure. You can't improve things if you don't know where you're at. You've got to measure those things that are important and know where you're at with them. The P is for planning. Our objectives always, we have to have a plan as to how we're going to get there. We're not just hoping it works out. The L is for learn and listen. Nobody knows everything. And so we want to use the team and learn from one another and leverage one another's experiences and insights. And, nobody's perfect. We don't expect our people to be perfect, but we should be better today than we were yesterday. And the E is execute. At the end of the day, you have to get the customer their parts competitively with good quality on time and all of that. You have to do what you say you're going to do and do it the right way. The plus one goes to what I mentioned earlier, which is we're here to solve problems. So whatever our customers can expect from our competitors, we want to go at least one step beyond that, and just make sure that we're exceeding expectations at every opportunity that we can. And so that's the cultural piece. Now, how you deploy that across a whole series of acquisitions, that's a challenge, and that comes back to leadership, and it comes back to sort of persistent patience. You can't not expect somebody who's worked in your environment for 6 months to respond to things the way someone who's been there for 5 years does. And so we're cognizant of that, and we're constantly working on that. And I think the key to that is, and people have different ways of doing it. Some people come in with sort of shock and awe, and here's your new reality, and that can work. But our approach is every decision that you make, every conversation that you have, every interaction is an opportunity to just move you closer to where we're trying to get to. And so we try to remind our managers every time that when you get busy, you can't get so busy that you're not thinking about the context of your conversations. So every time you're talking to somebody, that's an opportunity to explain why we do things the way we do them, not just tell people what they need to do and so forth. So it's an ongoing project, as is everything in business. And but we've got a really good team, and I think they've done a really good job with it so far. The key thing is your leaders have to actually believe that that's a culture worth selling. Like, it's one thing to tell people or put it on a PowerPoint, this is our culture, but people are pretty smart. They figure out pretty quickly what's really important to you. And so you got to have buy-in from the people who are trying to implement the culture.
I always like to end our podcast by asking, is there anything about AFC Industries that you find to be maybe it's unique in the industry compared to, the market as a whole? Or just that anything else about the company that you think our audience of distribution executives should know that they might not just find out by, reading our news briefs about the company?
Yeah, I mean, I come back to the team. I think we've got a fantastic team. A lot of other businesses have fantastic teams, I know, but our team really, I think, respects one another, and it's just a very collaborative environment. And so I don't think that you're going to find anybody else who's going to care more about what their customer needs and work together to get that done.
Kevin, thanks for joining the MDM podcast. I'm sure that our audience will see more headlines out of AFC coming forward. But in the meantime, thanks for all the insights shared today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.